Hey, have you ever been at that end of the field and action is happening at the opposite goal line and wish you could get the photos? Maybe you're shooting from that goal line, but the action happens at the 20-yard line at the opposite end. Maybe you're in the goal line and the action happens over at the 50-yard line along the sideline. What if you're in the goal line, the action is right here in front of you at the 10-yard line, literally 22 to 25 yards away? Don't we wish we had one lens that could cover all this field? Hey, this is Scott. Thanks for checking out this video. Don't we all wish that we had one lens that could cover an entire football field or an entire soccer field or an entire baseball field? Well, if you're shooting in good light and not under the lights at nighttime, the Canon 200 to 800 lens might just be that lens. I took this lens out to a high school football game yesterday and shot 2 quarters of football and gave this lens a test at my first sporting event with this lens. Now, I've used it to shoot air shows and I've used it to shoot a little bit of wildlife, some birds in the area, but mostly the air show, and I wanted to try it out at a daytime sporting event. So the football game started at 4 p.m. in Northeast Kansas. It's late September, so I had good light. It was actually kind of hot, but I had good light the entire time. But as you know, if you're familiar with this lens, this variable aperture lens, when you zoom from 200 to 800, the aperture changes from 6.3 to f9. Now that's only one stop of light, but you're starting at 6.3. So you're not getting a whole lot of light on this lens anyway. So if you're in poor lighting conditions, this lens is just not going to work. But if you're shooting youth sports or high school sports and they're played during the daytime, this lens literally can cover the entire field. I sat at the base of the goal post for 2 quarters, literally sat there, and I could cover this entire field with this lens. So that's really the biggest benefit of this Canon 200 to 800 lens, is that you can cover so much of the field from one spot. Now, I moved around some, and when I moved a little bit to the sidelines, of course, you can get different angles, and you're gonna wanna do that if you're wanting to really cover a game adequately. But I wanted to just try this lens and see how much of the field it would cover, and it knocked it out of the park. Now, a couple things about this lens that I wanna make note of. If you're not used to shooting long glass, if you don't have a 300 or a 400 or 500 or 600 lens, when you zoom this thing out to 800, it gets a bit unwieldy, and you have to have a steady hand when this thing is barreled out all the way to 800. And I will admit, it took me a few minutes in that first quarter before I felt like this lens wasn't kicking my you-know-what. And I got it dialed in, got comfortable, settled down, and had a steady hand at 800. So I'm dropping some photos in this video so you can see how far away I was and what the focal length of the lens was. But if you're only using a 70 to 200, and that's the longest lens you've got right now, and you move to this 200 to 800, again, the reach is incredible, but it will take you a while to get used to this focal length. I know people that have gone to a 300 or 400 and it's the first time they've used those long lenses. It takes a while being that zoomed in. So what a lot of people have a tendency to do if they're newer photographers is keep like a 70 to 200 at 70, and then they're cropping really heavily. Well, if you're getting a 200 to 800 lens, use the focal length of this lens that it gives you. So it's gonna take a while to get used to it. And this barrel zoom, again, I'm not a fan. In fact, this is the only variable aperture lens I've ever owned. I'm not a fan of the external zoom, this barrel, but it was an $1,800 lens, and I'm using it for specific things, and I know what it can and can't do. So a couple things. I shot this game handheld. If you've looked at reviews about this lens, one of the complaints, and it's a complaint of mine, that this tripod collar does not come off. But it does rotate all the way around. So when I was shooting air shows a couple months ago, I would keep it like this because that's kind of what I'm used to shooting, even if that tripod collar wasn't there. But what I learned, rather than having it like this all the time, and literally that foot of the collar was like digging into my palm, is just loosen that tripod collar, put your hand on the zoom ring, And when you need to zoom, that tripod collar will move with you. Hopefully you can see how that tripod collar is just moving as my hand moves. So that's the suggestion I would give to dealing with the tripod collar. This is a hand-holdable lens. If you think about football, they run a play, it takes 10 seconds, and then it's 30 seconds before they run another play. So there's plenty of opportunities to kind of set the lens down, hang it on your shoulder if you need to. You might use a monopod if that's an issue, but it is a hand-holdable lens. So again, let that tripod collar go loose and spin with your hand. Now, if you have a monopod on your tripod collar, you clearly can't rotate the zoom ring like that. So you're just gonna have to turn it in increments like that. Or there have been times that I would maybe even put my hand up here and just turn it really big. Most of the time what you're gonna be doing is shooting farther away, and I got a whole sequence of a touchdown catch that was probably a 60-yard catch, and I got it. He caught the running back, caught the ball out of the backfield, came down the sideline, came right towards me, and basically the issue was zooming in or zooming out to get wide. So I was maybe at 800, I don't remember, but I was zoomed out pretty far, and as that action came closer to me, I just zoomed in. It's a lot easier to do that zooming in than to zoom out. And I think that's the advantage of this lens. I would find myself focusing on the action way down there, and I might be at 600 millimeters, and I would just have my hand here, or I didn't have the monopod, but I would just be ready to zoom out as the action came towards me. So it's really pretty manageable. Again, it will take some getting used to, but it's doable. All right, so in conclusion, again, if you're familiar with the Canon 200 to 800 lens, it's a variable aperture lens, and it starts at f6.3 to f9 when you're at 800. So you're going to be very limited to using this only for youth or high school sports or anything that's happening in the daytime. In fact, I'm going to be shooting a college football game next weekend that starts at 11 a.m. I will have this with me for some marching band photos. I might use it for some action for a quarter. I have no doubt it will do fine. Oh, I do want to also mention, one of the limitations I experienced with this lens is that it's not L glass. So if you're used to shooting L glass, be aware that this doesn't quite lock focus as quickly as L glass. It locked pretty quick most of the time, but there were a couple of situations pretty far away, a play happened in the corner of the end zone. There was a touchdown catch, in fact. I saw the quarterback throwing the ball that way. I turned the lens, I saw the action, I tried to focus on it, and it just didn't focus quick enough until the players were coming down to the ground, and by then those images aren't usable. Because I would have had the peak action if it would have locked on the focus. So this isn't L glass, it's fast and it focuses quickly, but not the same as like a 400 2.8, 300 2.8, any L glass, because that's professional glass. This is what I would call prosumer glass. It'll work for professionals in certain situations, but you have to be aware that that's a limitation of this lens. So I made this video because before I bought this lens, I watched a lot of YouTube videos like you're doing right now. And almost everything I saw was about shooting birds and wildlife. This is a great lens for that, again, if you have good light. But I don't remember seeing any videos about using this lens for sports. You can assume if it works for birds and wildlife, it'll work for sports, and it will. So if you want a great value lens for only 1,800 bucks, the Canon 200 to 800 lens might fit the bill for you. So let me know if you have one of these and how it's working for you. Post something in the comments, or if you have questions about this lens, I'd be glad to help. I hope you found this video useful. Thanks for watching this video. Give it a big thumbs up, and happy shooting. I do want to mention that I've added a Roland Pro lens cover on this and a tripod collar foot, so I can easily attach it to the monopod, which I wish they would just make the collar feet like that, but they don't on most cases, at least with Canon. So anyway, first of all, it's hand-holdable. I've been hand-holding this the entire game. It's halftime now. I hope you can hear me over the PA sound. Can't touch this.
Can't touch this.
See, told you. Hey, we gotta have fun with it.